The snowflakes fell gently on our small Swedish village, covering the streets and rooftops with a soft white blanket. It was Christmas Eve, a time of joy and excitement for my younger sister, Anna, and me. In Sweden, we celebrate Christmas on the 24th, and for us, it was the most magical day of the year. Our family tradition was special. Every Christmas Eve, Dad would step out to buy the evening newspaper, a code for him dressing up as Santa Claus and returning with gifts. Our house, though small, was always warm and inviting. Mum had spent the entire day decorating and cooking, filling the house with a scent of gingerbread and cinnamon. The Christmas tree, adorned with lights and handmade ornaments, stood proudly in the corner of our living room. Anna and I had been counting down the days, eager for the evening when Santa Claus would visit. As the daylight faded, Dad announced he was going to get the newspaper. I remember feeling a twinge of excitement mixed with apprehension. Over the past few years, Dad had changed. The once cheerful and loving father had become more distant, often finding solace at the bottom of an empty bottle. His struggle with alcohol was a shadow of our family, but on Christmas Eve we tried to keep the spirit alive. I watched from the window as Dad walked away into the snowy evening. The street lights cast a soft glow of the falling snow, creating a serene, almost magical scene. Inside, Mum tried to keep the mood high, engaging Anna and me in decorating cookies, but her smiles didn't reach her eyes, and I could tell she was worried. To pass the time, Anna and I started reminiscing about past Christmases. We laughed about the time when Dad, dressed as Santa, tripped over a rug and almost knocked over the tree. But as we shared these memories, I couldn't help but notice how much things had changed. Dad's drinking had become more frequent, and with it, his mood swings. Mum did her best to shield us, but the tension was always there, like an uninvited guest at our holiday celebrations. An hour passed, then 2. The jovial atmosphere began to wane as Dad's absence grew longer than usual. Mum kept glancing at the clock, her worry becoming more apparent. Anna, sensing the change, grew quiet, her eyes fixed on the empty plate where the cookies for Santa lay. Finally, the sound of the front door opening broke the tense silence. We all turned, expecting to see Dad in his Santa outfit. But the man who stood in the doorway was far from the jolly figure we anticipated. Dad, still in his regular clothes, swayed slightly. His eyes glazed. The smell of alcohol was strong as he tumbled in, a dark contrast to the festive atmosphere we had tried to maintain. Mum's expression lifted, from relief to concern. "You're late," she said softly, her voice tinged with disappointment. "The children have been waiting." Dad grunted, his speech slurred. "Santa had a little detour," he mumbled, with a bitter edge to his words. He reached for a bottle on the counter, pouring himself a drink despite Mum's protesting glance. Anna clung to me, her eyes wide with confusion and fear. I wrapped my arm around her, trying to reassure her with a smile. But my heart was racing. This was not the Christmas Eve we'd imagined. The evening progressed with a strained sense of normalcy. Dad sat in his chair, sipping from his glass, while Mum tried to engage us in opening presents. But the joy of gift-giving was overshadowed by Dad's brooding presence. His moods shifted unpredictably. One moment laughing too loudly at a joke, the next snapping at a harmless comment. At some point, Dad decided to don his Santa outfit. But as he emerged from the bedroom, the red suit hanging loosely on his frame, he was a far cry from the Santa of our childhood memories. His movements were clumsy, his laughter forced. It was as if the suit amplified his inner turmoil, turning a symbol of joy into something menacing. Mum watched with a mix of sadness and alarm. She approached Dad, her voice gentle but firm. "Maybe it's time for bed," she suggested, trying to steer him away from us. But Dad's reaction was explosive. He pushed her away, his voice rising. "I'm Santa Claus. I decide when it's bedtime," he shouted, his face red with anger. Anna and I huddled together. The room, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt cold and threatening. In that moment, the magic of Christmas was shattered, replaced by a clinging sense of dread. As Dad's anger escalated, Mum tried to calm him down, her words drowned out by his loud, slurred accusations. The situation spiraled out of control, the air thick with tension and fear. Anna buried her face in my shoulder, her small body trembling. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the room as Dad knocked over a decoration in his rage. Mum's attempts to pacify him were futile. The father and husband we once knew was gone, replaced by a stranger fueled by alcohol and anger. It was then, amidst the chaos of that Christmas Eve, that our lives changed forever. The events that followed were a blur, a nightmarish sequence that would haunt me for years to come. The image of Dad, dressed as Santa Claus, with a face contorted in rage. As the night wore on, the true horror of Christmas Eve unfolded, a horror that would leave our family broken and a young boy's belief in the magic of Christmas shattered beyond repair. The memory of that night, of Santa Claus killing my mother. The clock struck midnight, and our house, once a haven of festive cheer, had become a stage for a harrowing scene. Dad, clad in his Santa suit, was a shadow of the man we once knew. His eyes, once warm and kind, now burned with an uncontrollable rage. Mum, her face etched with fear and concern, tried her best to shield Anna and me from Dad's outbursts. She moved with a calmness that belied her fear, her voice a soothing contrast to Dad's harsh tones. "Please, let's not do this tonight. Think of the children," she pleaded, her eyes darting between Dad and us. But Dad was beyond reason. His words slurred, he staggered around the room, knocking over the Christmas tree. Ornaments shattered on the floor, their fragments reflecting the twinkling lights in a grotesque parody of holiday joy. Anna clutched my hand tightly, her small fingers cold and trembling. In a desperate attempt to defuse the situation, Mum approached Dad. Her hands reached out to him with a misguided hope of calming him, but her touch seemed to ignite something even darker within him. He turned on her, a storm of anger in his eyes. The argument escalated, their voices rising over the sound of the howling wind outside. Dad's accusations were nonsensical, his words a jumbled mix of jealousy and paranoia. "You're always against me," he slurred, his face inches from Mum's. Mum's attempt to respond were cut short as Dad's aggression turned physical. With a swift, drunken motion, he pushed her. She stumbled backwards, a look of shock and pain crossing her face as she fell against the corner of the coffee table. The impact was sickening. A silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of Anna's whimpered sobs and the harsh breaths of Dad, who stood frozen, staring at what he'd done. I felt a surge of adrenaline and fear. "Mum!" I screamed, rushing to her side. She lay motionless, her eyes closed, a trickle of blood staining her blonde hair. I shook her gently, tears streaming down my face. "Mum, please wake up." Dad seemed to snap out of his drunken stupor, his eyes widening with the realization of his actions. He staggered backwards, his Santa suit a grotesque reminder of the night's twisted turn. I looked up at him, my eyes filled with a mix of hatred and disbelief. "You killed her," I yelled, my voice choked with tears. "You killed Mum." Anna, too young to fully comprehend the situation, clung to me, her cries filling the room. I held her close, my mind racing with fear and confusion. What were we going to do now? Who could help us? The sound of approaching sirens pierced the cold night air. Neighbors, alarmed by the noise and the commotion, had called the police. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Police officers burst into the house, their expressions turning to shock as they took in the scene. One of them rushed to Mum's side, checking for signs of life, while others apprehended my father, who offered no resistance, his face a mask of horror and regret. As the paramedics arrived, I held Anna tightly, watching in a daze as they tried to revive Mum, but it was too late. The realization that she was gone hit me like a physical blow. Our mother, the heart of our family, had been stolen from us on a night that was supposed to be filled with love and joy. The officers led Dad away in handcuffs, his Santa suit a stark contrast to the solemnity of the moment. He didn't resist, his eyes empty, the consequences of his actions slowly sinking in. Anna and I were taken to the neighbor's house, the warmth and safety of their home a stark contrast to the cold horror we had just experienced. As I held my sister, trying to comfort her, I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss and betrayal. The father I had loved and admired was now a monster in my eyes, a man who had destroyed our family in a single night of drunken madness. That Christmas Eve marked the end of our childhood innocence. The memories of laughter, presents, and family togetherness were replaced by a nightmare that would haunt us for the rest of our lives. As I lay awake that night, holding Anna close, I couldn't shake the image of Dad in his Santa suit, his actions a twisted perversion of a character meant to bring joy and happiness. The tragedy of that night would become a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly joy can turn to sorrow. Our lives were forever altered, the scars of that night etched deeply into our souls.